Hello allemaal. Merhaba arkadaşlar. Guten Tag. Salam ve hamegi. Hello everyone. Most people will spend a decade trying to get fit, build a business, or learn a new skill. In that same time, I learned 3 languages beside my 2 other native languages, with no teacher and no special gift for it. Not because I'm some kind of genius, but because I know how habits and mindset actually work. See, the reason you fail at learning languages has nothing to do with your memory. It's not about your age, and it's definitely not because you're just bad with languages. It's because your ego is sabotaging you every step of the way. Today I'm going to show you the system I use to get out of that ego trap. And here's the secret. This doesn't just work for languages, it works for everything. My first real shot at learning a language by myself was a complete train wreck. I chose German. I marched into a bookstore and bought the biggest, most complex grammar textbook I could find. It was a brick, packed with dense charts and rules that looked like they were written in code. I thought, this is it. This is how you get serious. And for about a week, I was the perfect student. I sat down every single night, highlighter in hand, trying to cram it all in. But that initial spark of motivation quickly started to fade. The rules were baffling, the exceptions were endless, and I felt like I was trying to build a car engine without an instruction manual. The worst part, I wasn't speaking a word, I wasn't connecting with anyone, I was just staring at paper. I slammed into a wall of resistance. It felt exactly like buying an expensive gym membership, going twice, and then spending the rest of the year trying to avoid making eye contact with building. That grammar book just sat on my shelf, gathering dust like a monument to my failure. That's when I realized the huge mistake I was making. I was trying to study a language, not learn it. I was approaching it like an academic, desperate to look perfect and sound smart right from the start. I didn't want to be a speaker, I wanted to be a linguist. I didn't want to get fit, I wanted to study exercise science. The shift from studying to doing was the key that would eventually unlock everything for me. The real turning point, the moment the lights finally came on, happened during a trip to a tiny town in rural Germany. I was in a grocery store just trying to ask a simple question. I had all the words right there in my head. I knew the vocabulary, but when I opened my mouth, a jumbled, broken sentence tumbled out. The cashier just gave me a completely blank stare. My face went hot. I felt invisible. I felt stupid. Think about it. As an adult, you spend your entire life building up a persona of competence. You are a professional, a parent, an expert in something. You know how to operate in the world. But the second you start speaking a new language, all of that gets stripped away. You sound like a child. You make basic mistakes. Your intelligence, your wit, your personality, it all vanishes, replaced by the fumbling vocabulary of a toddler. That is absolutely terrifying for the adult ego. That fear of being judged, of sounding incompetent. It's what researchers call language anxiety. It creates a neurological state that makes learning incredibly difficult. It kicks off a vicious cycle. You are afraid to make a mistake, so you don't speak. Because you don't speak, you get zero practice. With no practice, you don't improve, which makes your confidence plummet even further. Standing there in that grocery store, I realized my memory wasn't the problem. My motivation was the problem. The problem was my ego whispering in my ear, "Don't even try. You will look like an idiot. They will think you are dumb." I was so afraid of looking like a beginner that I was guaranteeing I would never be anything more. It was a psychological trap and I was caught right in it. Getting out of that trap meant I had to completely change the game I was playing in my own head. It wasn't about a better app or a fancier textbook. It was about adopting 3 core mindset shifts. First, I created a psychological permission slip. I decided that I wasn't learning German. Instead, I invented a character, a language alter ego. Let's call him German Ercan. German Ercan wasn't a business owner or a competent adult. He was a curious, clumsy, and super enthusiastic beginner. His only job was to try stuff. This might sound silly, but it is an insanely powerful psychological trick. By creating this separate identity, you detach your self-worth from your performance. When German Ercan made a mistake, it wasn't me failing. It was just him doing his job, which is to learn. He had permission to be imperfect, to ask dumb questions, and to get ridiculously excited about tiny wins, like successfully ordering a coffee. This gives you the freedom to play and experiment without the crushing weight of your ego's expectations. Next, I threw out my old definition of success. The point of language isn't to speak with flawless grammar. The point is to connect with other human beings. Nobody expects you to sound like a native speaker. They just want to understand what you are trying to say. I will never forget when this finally clicked. I was trying to learn some basic Persian for my work. I met a new client and fumbling with my notes, I managed to string together, "Hello, It is very nice to meet you in broken Farsi. Salam. خیلی خوشحال شدم که شما را دیدم. Grammatically, it was probably a car crash. My accent was awful, but the man's entire face lit up. He broke into a huge smile and responded with so much warmth and encouragement. In that moment, I wasn't perfect, but I had achieved connection. I showed respect for his culture, and that opened a door that my perfect English never could have. From that day on, my goal wasn't to avoid mistakes. My goal was to make someone smile. That tiny shift changes everything. It reframes every conversation, not as a test you can fail, but as an opportunity you can win just by trying. Finally, I flipped my entire learning model in its head. Instead of focusing on producing language speaking, I put 80% of my effort into understanding it, listening and reading. This is a strategy that polyglots like Steve Kaufman swear by. Why? Because the pressure to speak perfectly from day one is the number one reason people quit. By immersing yourself in content you can mostly understand, like podcasts for learners, kids shows, or simple books, you build a massive foundation of words and grammar without even trying. You just absorb it. You start to develop a feel for the language without the stress of having to perform. Speaking then becomes the natural overflow of all the listening and reading you have been doing, not some terrifying first step. Well guys, if you ever felt that fear of sounding stupid, that ego trap holding you back, do me a favor and hit that like button. And let me know in the comments which language you have struggled with. You're definitely not alone in this. Now, a mindset is useless without a habit, so I attached this new system to a simple non-negotiable routine. Just 15 minutes of focused language learning every single day. Not a 2-hour marathon on Sunday, but 15 minutes daily. Consistency builds momentum. This is where the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle, comes into play. In most languages, 1,000 most common words make up around 80% of daily conversation. My 15 minutes weren't spent on obscure grammar rules, they were spent absorbing these high-frequency words through podcasts and simple reading. I also became the master of that time. The 5 minutes waiting for my coffee, that's a podcast. The 10-minute walk to the office, listening to a lesson. These little pockets by time, which most people fill by scrolling through their phones, became my secret weapon. And I also used an app called Memrise, specifically because it solves the biggest problem with solo learning: sound. If you only read from a book, you might learn the word, but you will be deaf when a native speaker says it to you because they speak with speed and emotion. Memrise uses videos of real native speakers. I would watch their mouths move, hear their tone, then I would repeat it out loud over and over until the word didn't feel like a foreign object in my mouth. It felt like a tool I knew how to use. By the way, this video is not sponsored by Memrise. Once I had my vocabulary bank growing, I realized that 50 minutes a day was my workout, but I needed to live the lifestyle. You see, you don't have to move to Berlin or Tehran to learn the language. Yes, it will be easier to learn the language, but you just have to trick your brain into believing it's already there. I call this creating an artificial environment. In the beginning, I was a translator. I would see a cup of coffee, think of the Dutch word coffee, and then try to find the German word café or the Persian word kahve. But that's too slow. To be fluent, you have to cut out the middleman. I started narrating my life like a movie script inside my head. As I walked to the gym, I would think, ich gehe jetzt zum Fitnessstudio. Es ist kalt draußen. Spora gidiyorum şimdi. In Turkish. I stopped labeling objects and started feeling the language. Each language has a soul. German felt structured and powerful. Persian felt poetic and melodic. I started to lean into those emotions, and then one night it happened. I woke up and realized I had been dreaming in German or the Persian language. That is the ultimate milestone. When your subconscious, the part of you that doesn't try, starts using those words, you aren't just learning anymore. You have arrived. You have officially moved in. To keep this environment alive, I changed my inputs. I stopped watching TV just to relax. I turned into an immersion tool. I would put on the news, talk show, or a movie in the target language. At first, it sounded like a wall of noise. I probably only understood 20%. But I wasn't listening for the meaning, I was listening for the rhythm. I was training my ears to hear where one word ended and the next began. I started picking up a newspaper every day, even it took me an hour to get through one page. Reading the news gives you the cultural vocabulary. It tells you what the people in that country care about, what they are worried about, and how they joke. You aren't just learning words, you are learning a perspective. Beyond TV and books, there is a deeper level to this game, the soundtrack of the culture. When you dive into the music of the language you are learning, you aren't just hearing noise. You're feeling the heartbeat of the language through its rhythm. My advice: stop treating the language like a school subject and start integrating it in your daily life. When you live the language through its music, the words and sentences don't just stay in your head, they become part of who you are. It's the ultimate habit for someone who wants high performance results without the burnout. Now, if you are looking at Persian, Arabic or Russian, you might feel a different kind of fear. The script looks like beautiful art, but it feels like an unbreakable code. I remember looking at the Persian alphabet for the first time. It felt like a barrier keeping me out of a secret club. But I told myself, this isn't a wall, it's a puzzle. I spent 2 weeks doing nothing but mastering those characters. Start by writing down the entire alphabet and mapping it to the Latin alphabet. Think of this as daily training. Spend time every day practicing the script and learning words written in that specific alphabet. This habit forces your brain to stop translating and start thinking in the new language. The more you repeat this, the faster those foreign symbols will start to feel like second nature. Learning a new language changed my life, but not because I can order a beer in 6 different countries. It changed my life because it gave me a blueprint for personal growth. The real reason you fail isn't your memory. It's because you are letting the fear of being a beginner stop you from ever becoming a master. You have to be willing to sound stupid for a little while in order to become brilliant. You have to embrace imperfection on the path to excellence. That's the real secret. It was never about language. It's about learning how to learn. It's a system for building habits, for silencing your ego, and for transforming your life. If you're ready to apply the system to your fitness, your business, or anything else, subscribe. We're building something different here. Hit that button and I will see you in the next one.